Well, Gaffer, that's it. The end of your first season here at Turf Moor. We look back on it, 11th place in the Championship. What are your reflections on your time here so far, your brief time here so far?
Well, it's been interesting, obviously. A few ups and downs along the way. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed coming up to the area. Enjoyed getting to meet the people. Enjoyed the ones when we win. Not enjoyed the ones when we lose. But no, it's been good overall. There's been some good work behind the scenes that I've mentioned many times, you know, and some of that come to fruition with, you know, a strong finish, which we believe in, trying to build that winning mentality and that strong physicality to play for a hard as long as it takes, which nowadays could be 97, 98, 100 minutes. You know, and on reflection, some pretty good steps forward, I think. And to finish 11th overall in a division which every manager will tell you, and most pundits will tell you, and most fans will tell you, is probably the toughest it's been this championship this season. So to finish 11th leaves a good taste in everyone's mouth and shows signs of us being productive. And, you know, moving forward, last year was 13th and still with a £7 million centre forward. So, you know, it's strides have been made and we want to keep going forwards.
It's a strange one because we'll dip our toe, of course, into social media and speak to fans, and there is perhaps a split amongst fans. Some fans will think we've had a good season, an acceptable season. Some fans will think it's been a disappointing season. What would you say to those people? Because they're the ones who obviously are sometimes the most vocal.
Well, you can only suggest that how do you measure disappointment against good? You know, is disappointment reality bound amongst the challenges we have? Is it disappointing in the sense that or deemed disappointing in the sense that we took the team 7th and everyone presupposed at that time it was just going to take care of itself and we go and get promoted, which is obviously not that easy. I don't know, they'll have their own opinion of it. I know what the realities are. And that's why I agree with the people who think it's been at least a productive season, at least a positive feel to the season. Because the realities are that we're not market leaders. It's simple as that. We have to punch above our weight. And that's part of the history, of course, of Burnley Football Club. There are challenges here. We've had contractual challenges. We've had challenges from referees, possibly. It could be seen appropriate to mention. So within all the realities, then I see the positives of it. And that's partly the way I'm built. I like that. I like to look at the positives. I like to look at what we are doing. Aware of what we're not doing, but are concentrating and focused on what we are doing. So there may be that balance, it's fair to say. And as you suggest, there probably is. The ones who think it's been positive for the reasons that I suggest, or possibly the reasons that I suggest, maybe it's time for them people to sit next to the man who doesn't and have a chat about it and, you know, find them realities and find out where it actually lives. But to give you a feel of it, when you look at teams like Leicester, I mean, you know, they've had a really tough run, had to eat their way into it. Palace have just about managed to hang in there. You know, it's a tough division and they've got some really powerful players, some powerful squads. Look at the other end of the market. We've finished above Leeds. I think at the beginning of the season, most people would have probably doubted that, if I'm honest, before I was here even. You know, you look at the stats when we got here, they're 11 points out of the first 10 games, not exactly ripping it. Terry Pasha had a couple of wins, 17 points out of 14 games, still not exactly ripping it. So, you know, there were some challenges when we got here, conceding 2.3 goals a game. You can't do that over a season. That will end up in trouble. You know, so I think there are a lot of things that balance out favourably to give a positive look at the season. But I've always made it clear, fans have a right to see through whatever they wish to see through. The perception of it against the fact is entirely up to fans. The media side of it, there's a lot of people who tend to back this club, but they don't actually. They say they do and they don't, you know, and they're for the other people to balance out against and say, well, hang on a minute, you know, we believe in Burnley Football Club, and I believe in Burnley Football Club, and I believe in the community and back in Burnley Football Club, because that's one thing that's been absolutely clear to me. Forgetting about just on the pitch, the community cares for the club cares for the community. Through the ups and downs, the highs and lows, that's what I think this club is about, and it's an invaluable thing. Obviously, we want that to pull together and be positive to move it forwards.
There are challenges. You mentioned that yourself. Contractual challenges were one of the things. And one of the things people might ask is why these contracts were allowed to expire or almost get to the end. But my guess would be it's not as simple as that. Absolutely not.
It's absolutely not as simple as that, because when you're transitioning out through contract situations, and it's fair to say some contracts that were higher than the reality of what we can now achieve through contracts, then it's not as easy as offering. We were having conversations very quickly after we came into the building, but they take a long time because you're not offering more. Now, most people, if you're offering more, tends to be an easier situation for obvious reasons. When you're not, they then have a look around, and their agent has a look around, and the market has to decide a little bit, because players might go, well, I've heard that, and I've heard this, and I've heard that, and find out where they live with it, with what we can offer, and not just what we can offer, by the way. Let me make that clear. People want to stay here. They enjoy the club. They enjoy the environment. They enjoy what we try and do with them on the training field, the feel of it, the fans, being part of the history, if you like, of the club, and the attempt to move it forward. So all of them things come into the thinking. It's just not as easy as, well, why didn't you affect these contracts earlier? Because of course we would have done that. But that usually, quite obviously, depends on finance somewhere down the line. To go along with that fact that players want to be here, it has to be supported by finance. So as I suggested at the beginning, when you're transitioning out of that financial era and trying to bring a bit more of a stable reality to it, then that can take time.
You've inherited a squad here. It's fair to say this summer we're probably going to see more of the Sean Dyche team, just through the comings and goings of players. So we're going to see more of your stamp on the team, I think.
Well, that's what we're hoping. Obviously, you know, we still are being as flexible-minded as we can with contracts. There's only a couple that are up, and you know, Chris McCann, for example, made it clear that he wanted to at least have a look at what was out there. That's why there's been no real negotiation process. Grant, he's left partly package-wise and partly because his family have been living in Derby for years. He's still got a house there. So that comes into its part as well, it must be fair to say. Two players have enjoyed their time at Burnley for sure, and Chris obviously a long servant, so you know it's been an important part of his life, not just his football life. And Grant has delivered well for us since we've got it. I think he enjoyed the fact that we had tightened it up as a goalie. You know what I do, and he started keeping clean sheets, so he's enjoyed that. But they're two examples that free up a little bit of leeway for us. There's other examples where it might have to be manoeuvring the chess pieces. Some come in, some go out. So we'll see how that develops over the next 6, 7, 8, 10 weeks.
Just to clarify there, Gaffer, it sounds like Chris McCann's on his way. The door's still open for negotiations there with Chris?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you know, we don't shut down on good players, and we feel he's a good player. He's been productive over the years. And, you know, we don't shut down on them situations, but it was his choice, really, you know, to just say, look, I'm just going to see how things develop. By no means I must make it clear in his phone, not saying, oh, I'm definitely leaving and all of that sort of stuff. It wasn't that kind of conversation. It was just, look, I just, you know, need to see what my thoughts are and what is there and what isn't there, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not closing the door on it. We're just saying that's the reality of every player has a choice nowadays. You know, never more so than nowadays. You know, they're in powerful positions now, players with their contracts, and he's just made a decision to let that one just take its course.
And we're moving through the team there from the back to the front, which brings us to the spearhead. And Charlie Austin, the big question that all fans will be asking, where are we with Charlie Austin? What will happen this summer? Big question marks there, I guess.
Well, the same reality is what it's always been before I was here, when I was here, and up to now. You know, and that is that there will always be interest in players who score goals, particularly one who scores lots of goals, and he scored lots of goals. So, you know, we'll be flexible with the notion of what if. We're not actually actively searching for that or searching for people to come in for him, but there's a reality that suggests there's a chance that people will. So we have to be flexible-minded with that and work with the realities of that situation. The board will make a decision wisely if it happens and if someone comes in for him and if it's appropriate for the club to move forward. If it's not, then we crack on.
But it's important to realise that if a player like Charlie does go, if we flash back 12 months, a £7 million striker in Jay Rodriguez leaves and the club finishes higher the following season, it isn't the end of the world when these players move on.
Well, no, and we have to, you know, work accordingly. We have to, you know, get a feel for the squad. Amazing kind of feel to it. Is was it 6 wins out of 10 games when Charlie was injured this season? So, you know, that's sometimes the strangeness of football. Now, of course, Charlie's been a great part of this club for this season particularly, and last season got 14, I think, and had an awkward time with injuries. But it doesn't mean that it's broken because one player might, by the way, go. You know, it doesn't mean that. It means that there's still other players here. We're still developing a team. We're still developing that winning mentality that I mentioned. And there's been good signs of that this season. Now we want to build on it, make it more consistent, make the group more powerful. We want to add to it when and if we can. And then we move forward again. And so, you know, as you suggest, one player doesn't make a team. The team makes the team.
And young players will always come through as well. And I know you're particularly keen to blood the young lads. the likes of Cammy Howis and Stevie Hewitt got a little bit of a flavour for it in the last game there. I guess they're always in your thoughts as well, not just here, but maybe perhaps sending them out on loan and getting the experiences of loans elsewhere to bud them in their careers. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they had an experience last year. Cammy Howis went out to Donny. Didn't play as much as we like, but they still have learned from what it is in a team that were pushing and finally did it. Stevie Hewitt differently went out to Alfreton, but it's invaluable to him. The physical side of it, the nature of it, it's still a very, it's a very competitive division in the conference. So, they're two players you've mentioned amongst a few others. Luke Gallagher and Jason Gilchrist went out to Droylsden just for that experience. We're not wondering whether they're going to take them up to the top of the league. The experience, getting used to it, men's football, amongst many others. So there's an appropriate time and there's an appropriate way of doing it. We try and do it the best we can, measure it wisely, who needs what, and the outcome being getting ready to walk out at Turf Moor. And as you suggest, with 5 or 6 to go, we were hoping, and in a normal season in the Championship, we'd have been clear, still searching that way quite evidently, of any sort of looking over our shoulder, and we weren't there. So I was hoping with 5 or 6 to go, these players actually got some pitch time as well. As it happened, we wanted to make sure we finished as strong as we could and get points on the table, and that ends up with an 11th finish. So all in all, pretty pleased.
Which brings me on to the final question, Gaffer. Where do you feel Burnley Football Club stands now? I mean, is it kind of moving forwards progressively? Is it kind of hanging on the coattails of perhaps the bigger financial cash-rich clubs? Whereabouts do you feel we are?
I think we have to. I think it's part of the Burnley history. Is and I'm learning about it from yourself and from many others. Many fans tell me about the history, but I think there's a reality to it, and that is this club historically has punched above its weight. And it's had to do that. We've just finished the 5th highest this club has finished since it got back into the Championship. Which suggests that every season is not one where you're in the top 6. So the challenge is quite obvious to use your finance wisely, to build a team, not just individuals, to use the feel of the club and that one club mentality and the community back in the club, and to yet again deliver performances, to grow as a team, to develop players, to possibly sell if we have to, but to keep moving the club forward. We've put a lot of emphasis since I've been here on improving the analysis, a lot on the sports science side of things. We're building a recruitment department, which is quite a way down the line now. So we've got more recruiters out there, more eyes on the road, if you like. Looking at players, searching for players. Now that doesn't give instant impact always, but I think there's been some good signs of that. Not so much the recruitment, we haven't had a chance to do that, but certainly the science side and the analysis side has given us a chance to get more out of the players, and that's what we want to do. That's what it's about, football. Getting the maximum you can out of the players to have the best chance of going and winning as many games as you can to make sure you're going that way, and that's our intention.
And there's plenty of things to look forward to. A new season coming up, new challenges for everybody. And I think when everyone's had a summer, everyone comes back raring and ready to go. And what we really need is everybody behind the club. That's the one thing here, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. One thing that's become quite apparent to me here is that the club needs the community needs the club. It's quite obvious. Burnley, most people know Burnley as a place because of the football club. And that's a really important link, an important bond between the two. And we just want to build that. We want it to continue. And we know there's ups and downs. We know it gets at stretch at times because people want a lot nowadays. They want that Premier League and they think we should just be in there. It's not that easy. It doesn't mean that it can't happen, because it's happened once recently, or 3-4 years ago. It happened to Watford, just before my time there. It happened to Blackpool. Not market leaders at them times when they managed to do it. Not throwing around ridiculous amounts of money. So that doesn't mean it's a guarantee. Look at Wolves, massive club, massive sort of fan base and wealth, if you like, in this division. Unfortunately for them, they've gone down this year. So we measure ourselves accordingly, but we realise that we can still do it. We can still be productive. We can still move forward as a club. And that's what we intend to do. And there's been some good things put in place. It doesn't guarantee anything. There's no guarantees in football, but it gives you a better opportunity to keep moving forward.
Gaffer, it's been an eventful season, and I know every Burnley fan wishes you well. Thanks for that today.
Thank you.